your host, Shelly Sanders.
Good afternoon, Facebook fam and YouTube audience. Welcome to Conversations with Shelly. My name is Michelle Sanders, and I am your host for today's conversation. How are you guys doing on this beautiful Sunday afternoon? We are enjoying ourselves here because we have another win. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers just crushed the Dolphins. Whoop, whoop. Yes, we did. I'm sorry, you guys. So if you're a Dolphins fan, I'm sorry, but yes, we won. The Buccaneers, we are number one. So with that, guys, I just want to welcome you again to Conversations with Shelly. My name is Michelle Sanders. I am your host for today's conversation. And guys, what we're going to do is like we do every week, we talk about it. So our series that we're talking about this time is health. It's a mind and body thing. And we have a special guest on with us today, so I cannot wait to introduce Ms. Tammy Robinson to you. But in the meantime, before we get to our guest and start having our great conversation, I would like for you to like, and share, and subscribe. Yes, we're out on YouTube now. We have a YouTube channel, Soul Cafe RM, as in Real Ministry. So go out and subscribe, like, share, and subscribe. And as I say, the first person who goes out and shares this live with your social media platform and come back into the comment section and type SCWC, Share Conversations with Shelly, will win a beautiful wine glass with our logo on it. So first one's out. And guys, if you've already won a wine glass, give somebody else a chance to win, okay? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So with that, guys, I hope you are having a beautiful day, and we're going to get into it, and we're going to talk about it. So over the last few weeks, we've been talking about health. It's a mind-body thing, and we've had guests come on to talk about various aspects that relate to health. And last week, we had the Birds on who shared their experience with COVID, and we talked a little bit about that in the COVID clinic that's being offered there at her business, Serenity Outreach, there in Progress Village. And they shared their story, a brush with death, and God is a lifesaver. So if you guys didn't hear the Bird's testimony, please go back, look at my Facebook page, Conversations with Shelly, with all of the conversations and shows we've had. And you can also go out to YouTube, Soul Cafe RM, and catch that show. All right, guys. And so we've also had on Michelle Loving and Chris Tunzel. They came in and they talked about mental health from a youth standpoint, young adults or youth standpoint. And we provided some great resources. They shared some great experiences as they are educated and certified in that area as well. And so I'm excited because today we have Ms. Tammy Robinson that's joining with us. And one thing, guys, you know, as I say, I like to make sure we get knowledge here. And what I say is that knowledge is power, and you guys have heard that quote. But it's what you do with the knowledge that you have that will determine your outcome. And we also had, again, on our show as well, Debrina Brooks, and she shared her experience just about her natural weight loss experience. So please, we had some links, so you can make sure you check out Miss Brooks as well, Mrs. Brooks as well. We had some links out there, and she just shared her whole journey as to her weight loss journey, and I really appreciate and respect her sharing her journey and what she's doing to exercise, what she's doing to eat, and even those cheat days. So, guys, make sure you go back and check out those conversations. So we're here today back talking about mental health. And I wanted to the first time we talked about it from a young people standpoint, youth and teenagers and the impact there. But we wanted to deal with adults today and just talk about mental health and mental wellness. And so with that, guys, as I was saying earlier, knowledge is power, right? But it's what you do with that knowledge that determines the outcome. So there's an action for you to take, right? We can have information all the time, but of course you have to make sure that you take the action that is necessary to be able to change your own life. So I want to get into this with Ms. Tammy Robinson because she definitely is an expert in this area. As a counselor, and I'm going to read a little bit about her bio, and then we're going to move into it. And I think maybe before that, we're going to go through, as Tammy comes on, we're going to go through and we're going to talk about what is mental health. We're going to talk about what's important as for mental health wise and important overall. And then we're going to look at and talk about how mental health has changed. She'll share some of those experiences as well that she's had. And then what are some of the common things that you can identify as far as mental health, teaching yourself, hey, I need to get help. So, and definitely Tammy will talk to us about resources, and she is definitely a resource you can go to. So with that, Facebook family, YouTube audience, let me share a little bit about Tammy Robinson. Tammy Robinson, the Lady Apostle, Apostle Tammy Robinson. Tammy Robinson, also known as the Lady Apostle, as I said, brings a definite fresh flair of genuine authenticity to the Christian culture and social sector. Tammy is the mother of 4 natural children and 5 grandchildren. She is the visionary of the grassroots nonprofit organization, Well Pavilion Empowerment Center, which births initiatives for social and economic reform, as well as the pastor of Legacy Church in Tampa, Florida. Her educational and professional profile includes an associate's degree in theology, a BS in social sciences and Christian counseling, a minor in special education and autism, as well as a master's in science of social administration with a concentration in youth and family therapy. She is a licensed clinical social worker and therapist and owns and operates Soul Path Counseling and Therapeutic Services. She is the founder and executive director of Legacy Elite Christian Preparatory School, serving grades pre-kindergarten through 12th grade in 3 locations, as well as on other small businesses. She owns, other small businesses, No Limit Tax Refunds, Lady Credit Repair, LAM Consulting. She is an author, great author, who has written and published several books to include workbooks and devotionals, Worshiping, Working, and Winning in Hostile Environments, Unbroken Heart, Breaking the Cycle of Toxic Relationships, and Becoming More Woman, as well as the inspirational books, Single by Default, Relationship Woes, a co-authored work, Giving Birth to Judah, and 40 Days in His Faith. Tammy Robinson, also known as the Lady Apostle, walks in such transparency that those who have struggled with facing their most traumatic and shameful life experiences are healed and empowered by her powerful relational style teaching. She instructs from her acquaintance with overcoming crisis in relationship and by being a true life example of resilience and restoration. She lives by Jeremiah 29:11 principle and believes everyone has a hope and an expected end. So with that, Facebook family, YouTube audience, please welcome to Conversations with Shelley, my guest today and my friend, my sissy, Tammy Robinson. Tammy, are you out there? Make sure you're off mute and come on and talk to us.
Hello, hello.
Hey. Say hello to our Facebook fam, Tammy.
Hey, Facebook fam. Hey,
and YouTube
with Shelley fam.
And YouTube audience, I don't want to forget YouTube.
Hey, YouTube audience.
Thank you. So, Tammy, just to get started, thank you so much for being a guest here today. And I want to say I'm so appreciative because when we started Conversations with Shelley, and I told somebody about this story, Eric Bill, DJ Easy. I remember we started during the COVID, during the shutdown. I wanted to do music and get something out into the community because we were feeling so stifled being shut in. And I was like, let's bring some joy. What can we do? And we started doing gospel music, and then we started doing pajama jam on Saturday night where we were jamming. And then one time Eric mentioned, he said, you need to get on the mic on Sundays and, host it and do some things. And I said, I'm not a DJ. No, that's your lane. And so next thing you know, I came up with, I was like, but this is what I can do, Conversations with Shelley. And that's how it was birthed, from the idea from him pushing me to try to DJ. And I was like, no, I'll stay in my lane. Let me do this. But I remember, Tammy, the first show was with Fred, my brother Fred, Pastor Fred and Pastor Dwayne. We talked about why worship. And then the next show we came in and we talked about dealing with grief. And you came on, you're my second guest and on Conversation with Shelley. So thank you for being my second guest and supporting me, this entire year, going over a year now with the show. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome. I'm just so honored. And I want to thank you for you've taken Conversations to Shelley to just a new height. You set the bar, especially for being an advocate and an activist for our community, and also for that community in Progress Village. So we are I am, and I know so many other people are just thankful for what you're doing, for just being that voice, for just getting topics out there, community awareness out there. So you know that I'm a social worker, and that just gives me joy every time I see conversations with Shelley and the many things that you have been able to tackle and focus on. So thank you so much.
Good stuff. And not to mention that you have so many things, so many gifts, Tammy, so many things going on. But you have also a show as well, or that you have, I think, I don't want to get it wrong. So tell me what the title so I don't get it wrong.
Well, it's called The Ladies' Place, all things lady.
Ladies' Place.
Just as everyone else, I kind of veer off in areas, especially when it has to do with relationship. So I'm a relational person. That's something that I've discussed years on in about being able to recover and develop a healthy relationship, and I do it from an altruism, from an altruistic standpoint. When you've encompassed so much with trauma, relational trauma, and things of that nature, I always want to be a help to others. Sometimes when I couldn't help myself, to be able to get information out about how to recover and to be able to be restored from relationship crisis. So that's my thing, The Ladies' Place. And I kind of derived that from Four Wives and Waiting, The Purpose Makes Place, and all the other things that I do. And my brander was like, okay, we got to kind of bring it together. So I said, okay, well, let's do all things ladies. She says, yeah, we'll call it The Ladies' Place. And we started on this year, as a matter of fact. And I had some things come up, crisis in my life. So I'm writing right now. Looking forward to coming out with some great stuff for this year coming, and taking off, at the beginning of the year with Ladies' Place. And it's been very successful, and I've enjoyed it.
Yes, and I have too. And I'll tell you, have a number of platforms that you leverage and avenues that you use, and it's just a blessing. And I will tell you, as a Black woman, as a female, as a Christian woman, as a divorced woman, some of the things that I really love, your authenticity, and you're just sharing, authentically from your heart, your experiences. And one of the things I remember Bishop used to say, Bishop George Bloomer in North Carolina, and he would say, it's not that I haven't been scandalous. I just haven't been caught in many scandals. And then
Amen.
he'll say, I will tell on myself first and shout before I let you hold me hostage to something that I've done within my past, right? And so
True.
I think of you in that sense because your authenticity is a sharing of your life, your story. And that means that you have to be really vulnerable to be able to do that. And so I respect it and I appreciate it. And I know it's not for everyone, but, I appreciate it because there are things I will tell you over the years that I've known you, Tim, that you have shared that have blessed my life tremendously. And so I just wanted to tell you that I know that comes with a price, but I want you to know that women are being helped, men are being helped, by that, and always know that your message is getting out there and it's transforming people's lives. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So with that, Facebook family, YouTube audience, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. So our show today, health, it's a mind and body thing. And so, as I said, we've been talking about things with the physical, things on the mental, and we'll get into, things from the spiritual side of the house. But today we're going to talk about mental health, mental awareness, mental illness. And so, Tim, as we talk about this, when I was thinking about our conversation today, and I was thinking mental health and mental awareness, but if you take care of mental health, I was thinking, then you won't move into the area of mental illness.
That's
right?
So
true.
It's
kind of like we're doing the things we need to do to prepare our body to do right by eating right and exercising right and doing the things we need. So we're doing the pre-work to help us be proactive to eliminate things from happening, right, to us, right, disease and stuff like that. So if we take care of ourselves healthy, then it's more than likely we won't have certain kind of diseases. So I'm thinking if we take care of ourselves mentally, then it's more than likely that we won't fall into certain types of mental health, because I know some is hereditary, possibly. So talk to me a little bit about what you understand mental health to be, and that what I just touched on, like mental health growing into possibly mental illness if you don't address it.
Yes. Well, first I have to know what mental health is in order to be able to address those things, because if we know back in the 1800s and also especially with the BIPOC community and so many you know, the Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, the Asians, Indians, you know, we're all people, you know, all of those that are included in the people of color. We have to understand that traditionally and culturally, that mental health has just become something that we in the BIPOC community are opening up to because of all of the taboo things that have been put out there, you know, from the 1800s. And if you look back and you look at what what mental health was then, we notice that the scene for mental health was encompassed with the view of those who were being restrained, put in mental hospitals, you know, isolated from their communities and things of that nature. And I always like to refer, when we look at mental health from the beginning, we look at the man with the lesions who they didn't even allow into the city, that they took him out of the city. If we read the Bible, they took him out to the city and they chained him up, and he kept breaking loose, and they kept putting him back out of the city because they did not want to deal with mental illness. So when we look at mental health, we look at the essence of mental health will include our emotions, our psychological and our social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, how we act, and it helps us be able to determine how we handle stress, how we relate to others, how we make our choices. And it's also important at every stage of our life, and it starts from childhood and adolescence throughout our adulthood. But we notice that our mental health is shaped mostly in our childhood and our adolescence. That's why I'm so drawn to making sure that our youth are provided with good social and mental skills, because one of the things that I always tell my clients, especially when I'm introducing myself to them as their therapist, I always tell them, because they come with a problem right now. You know, they get to where it's something that they can't bear, it's something that they can't handle, and then they call a therapist, right? They don't take care of themselves up until that point, but we're not taught to, and we'll get into that later, I'm sure. So what I always tell them, that what you're going through right now, what's affecting you or what's happening to you right now, has less to do with the present situation and more to do with those things that have shaped your perceptions, like your upbringing, the perception and experiences from those in the past that have caused you to think and feel and behave the way you do right now, which essentially determines how well we deal with current crisis, current stressors, and things of that nature. So we have to understand that in all reality, although, you know, men and women, we react different to stressors, we react different to mental health crisis. Women may react, men may internalize, but in essence, if we don't address our mental health, if we don't address those things that are occurring with us that may put us in those moods, those low moods, and the more that we put it off, the more that we internalize it, the more that we react to it instead of responding to it in a healthy way, the more mental health disorders start to spring up in our life.
So Tammy, can you hear me? I'm just getting feedback saying, I don't know if something's rubbing against your, do you have on earbuds or anything like that?
No, I don't have on any earbuds.
Yeah, so I don't know. It might be just a little tingle or something going back in the sound, but let's go ahead and move on. So I'm not sure what it is, but if it's nothing by your sound, I don't know what's going through on YouTube or Facebook, but all right. So let's go back a little bit. So you're talking about the mental health, including you're talking about emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So it's just so when we talk about that, when we deal with emotional, that takes me back to sometimes I'm talking about relationships, right?
Right.
Emotional, dealing with relationships, and also dealing with different things that happen within your life, be it within your family structure, be it within your work structure, be it within church. Be it, physical, your health, your physical health. So all those are different things that can trigger, certain emotions, addictions, and things like that as I'm kind of thinking this through. And that moves into psychological and then social well-being as far as how you're interacting and engaging with other people. I want to bring up here, and the reason I bring that up, go back over that, I want to bring up Simone Biles, right? The athlete.
Yes.
So because she took a stand, during the the Olympics.
Olympics.
During the Olympics this year, she took a stand and decided to, step out of her own self-performance, right, as an athlete, and basically cheer on her team because mentally she was not there. And kind of in going into her situation, you read that she had some different things going on that was just if you're affected in your mind, in your emotions, then when you get ready to perform, whatever it might be, and she happened to be an athlete, it's going to impact you. So talk to me a little bit about what you think, and I guess the boldness of her to be able to step out, having the platform that she had, having the pressure that she had from everyone to be that gold medal winner and do what she always does, press things down and just perform. Talk to me a little bit about that as far as what you think about her and how her coming out and making that stand, but also translating to everyday people who have to push stuff down and then try to deal with it and at some point just break.
So let me give you the profile of my average client. My average client they're professional. They're young, possibly between the ages of 25 and 35. This is my average client on a daily basis. They are very well connected. They are probably middle class. And basically, they have a lot of stressors, people that are depending on them, people who are depending on them to perform. They like moving in the spirit of excellence. So there are people that, basically they control narratives. They control their narratives. And if you look at Simone, she's been under a lot of pressure. She's in the limelight. So there's no telling. Let's start, because I always talk about the fact of the matter. Nothing that's happening right now starts right now. So let's look at the profile. That's why I'm very psychoanalytical when it comes to dealing with clients. People want to be cognitive and deal with what's going on with the mind, but we got to look at the root cause of it. She's been under a lot of pressure for a very long time. She's been pressured into performance mode, things of that nature. So her mind is always probably processing things that she has to do and do it perfect. She's got to do it perfect. She's got to do it just right. So think about that on a daily basis from probably early childhood to now, and having to just be in that mode of just performing. Because a lot of times we don't understand that if we don't take those breaks, those breaks to debrief, those breaks to sit down and have those breathers, constantly going, your mind constantly going, you constantly trying to perform at that peak level, trying to make sure that you're doing everything that the world and the community desires for you to do. There's got to be a lot of stress in that, which brings about anxiety, which also causes the mind to weaken and things of that nature. So what she was going through in this phenomenon called the twisties, because I think that was one of the basis of what she's been dealing with, this phenomenon, which I've been reading up on, since she's been experiencing this. Imagine how the body can be in tune, but the mind can be off, right? The body can be in tune, but the mind can be off. And that happens when there's too much stress. We've got to learn how to, come out of ourselves. A lot of things that I tell my clients, you can't control what's outside of your locus of control. So when we're looking at things, when the way we experience anxiety, the way that we experience those low moves of depression, it's because we're basically constantly trying to control narratives that are outside of our control. I can't control what you do. I can't control what you say. But what I can do is I can learn to control what's going on with me, what's going on inside of me, and what happens when there's problems with mental health, a decline in the mental health. It's because I'm not taking care of what's happening to me emotionally. I'm not seeing about myself. And one thing I said, what if as adults, let's talk about not as children, because we learn how to cope. Our parents teach us how to cope. But what if we were so in tune with ourselves and what we experience that at the time of the initial stressor, or the time of the initial point of devastation, say, relationship hurt, or death or something like that, that we take time Michelle, to deal with ourselves, to say, I'm hurting, this thing really hurt me. I'm depressed, I'm angry, whatever those emotions are. But we as people are taught to perform. We're not taught to profess. We're taught to perform. So what we do, we immediately, especially in the religious world, we go into performance mode. Oh, I'm all right. Praise the Lord. Shout, dance. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Oh, that didn't bother me. And we pack it down and we pack it down and we suppress all of these things that are going on with us emotionally. So imagine every relationship, we pack it down. I'm all right. I'm fine. And we move on. Every circumstance or situation or break in stress on our jobs. Oh, we pack it down. Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm just going to go on. I just move on from that, because we're taught to move on and never address those things that are bothering us by admitting and allowing ourselves to filter out our emotions. All emotions are healthy emotions. The way that they become disorders and the way that they become dysfunctional, because we never restore the function after the affect. Okay.
So let's take a pause there and rewind. So going back, because I really want to touch on something you mentioned, especially being in the Christian community, and not even just Christian community, but even I see it a lot, especially with women, but also men, because men have a different way of how they handle things too.
Yes.
And so we deal with the mental health that can translate into impact of our physical health that can get for stroke and heart disease and stress and all of that impacts our physical health, if we're not taking care of our mental health. So one of the things you were saying, especially with Christians, is that, I'm blessed and highly favored and all these buzzwords and everything, I'm above and not beneath. And the scriptures say these things are some kind of reference some way, so get it. Understand the faith talk and the faith walk, but, God never told us to be void of a reality, right? That we're dealing in a reality and being able to, as you said, acknowledge that, say that this is what I am dealing with. And that doesn't mean that you're not a woman or a man of faith because you're experiencing a certain kind of emotion. Like you said, the emotions are healthy. We're given these emotions. It's just how, as you talked about the disorder, we can get into the disorder, but the fact is these are healthy emotions. So anger is a healthy emotion, love, sadness or whatever. These are healthy emotions that we experience, but it's just the point, if you're saying, if we keep packing it down and we don't, I like how you said that, we don't handle that emotion, that dysfunction, bring it back so it's functional, then we are building, I think, like a time bomb that's getting ready to go off at some point.
Indeed. So I want to address what you're talking about, how emotional issues can turn into physical issues, right? And there's a lot of studies going on concerning emotional turning into physical, but there are some cases where the body responds to emotional dysfunction or emotional disorders, and we call those somatic. Okay, somatic disorders, where that the body, the emotional dysfunction or the emotional effects or turning into physical effects. So it's very important, especially myself as a counselor, when I have someone coming to me and they're saying, well, I'm experiencing headaches, I'm experiencing all of these, body aches and things of that nature, pains in my stomach, digestive problems and things of that nature. These are all somatic. The first thing that we do when that happens, we want to rule out. So the first thing we'll say, okay, you need to go to your doctor. You need to go to your doctor. You need to get a battery of tests done, blood work, physical, have them check you out. Well, the doctor comes back and they give them a response and say, okay, nothing is going on in their body. Their blood counts are good. Everything is good. So this has to be mental. It has to be emotional. So we call those disorders somatic disorders. And it is true in fact, and it's not, because people want to look at it as crazy. All right. Oh, they're crazy. Ain't nothing going on. Oh, they're a hypochondriac. Yeah. Sometimes there are people that deal with the fear of sickness and they formulate, thoughts in their mind that they may have this or they may have that. That's more hypochondria. Okay. But people who have physical ailments that derive from emotional and mental responses, they're called somatic illnesses and pain. It can be pain in their arms, pain in their legs, joint pains, stomach aches, headaches, which are neurological, weakness, dizziness, fainting. All of these things are considered somatic, and there may not be a medical derivation or etiology of them because of the fact of the matter, it's coming from an emotional or mental affect.
That's it. Whew. So you have that piece of it, right?
Yes.
That's from the emotional side, like you said, and then you have the piece of it. I'll say for myself, I'll give my example. With me, with stress. So with me, because I have a hypertension and I have heart issues, that's been passed along in my DNA. So one of the things major for me is stress, right?
Yes.
Stressors. And before I had my, my bout with sickness earlier this year, I really didn't pay too much attention to understanding what put me in that space of stress. Yes. So I began to pay attention, because I was given another chance. I began to pay attention, and I had to realize that I had to start taking care of myself, because I noticed immediately, even now on my job at times, when I get too excited about something or feel like I'm under some kind of pressure, then my stress goes up. That increases my heart rate. It increases my blood pressure, which is an unsafe place for me. So I have medication to manage it, but even with medication, even if I am doing those stressors, or I allow myself to get stressed, it still affects me even on the medication. So yes. To me, for me, that's something that can take me out of here, you know. And so I learned, since I want to live longer, I try to now, I pay more attention now than I ever have to, okay, I know I'm getting worked up. I need to transition. I need to do something. Or if it's in the presence of people emotionally where I know I'm not going to do well.
Correct.
I will, I'll forego, gathering with you this time, because I know it's going to trigger something, and then I'm going to go somewhere that I don't need to physically.
Indeed.
So I like that, but you're showing the difference in, the physical association, then the emotional side, that not a physical diagnosis, but it impacts you physically. The emotional side, talk to me about what your recommendations, because I know, like, in our community, you were just saying, in our community, it's taboo to try to go and have, counseling and things like that. And I know we always say, you go to the doctor for everything else, go to the doctor for your mind.
Correct.
But talk to me about some of what you would recommend, resources or even things that people can do to help themselves emotionally, or identify that they're having emotional issues which can lead to a mental breakdown.
Okay, so let's discuss mental breakdown for a minute, okay? Because I think that people think that all of a sudden this happens, and it doesn't all of a sudden happen. Right now we are in, the whole country, world is in a crisis. And I think that in this point, in this time, and I think most people who have probably never even had emotional problems or mental health problems now are finding themselves dealing with these stressors, which are turning into mental health concerns, right? And most of it is, and this is what I say, many times people don't have a chance to be able to deal with mental crisis, right? We're working, we've got all of these outlets that, children, baseball games, all the things that we're doing. We're able to go out, self-care, go out on a weekend, all these things that we were able to do. And then all of a sudden the world shuts down.
Yeah.
And we're isolated, and we're isolated with our own thoughts. We're isolated with our stressors and things of that nature. And more people in this season alone have suffered from mental breakdowns. But it's not all of a sudden. It's not all of a sudden. One thing that you need to be able, or people need to focus on, is, especially with those that are around them, depression. Look at depression. If you start experiencing depression or low moods on in a way, in an extreme manner, to where you can't function at work. You don't want to get up in the morning just to, do your daily activities. Something's wrong. Isolation is another thing, right? Anxiety is another thing. Stressors on job are different things that can lead to mental breakdowns. So these are different things. It starts out and it may look normal. but then it turns into something, as it piles on, it turns onto something heavier and greater. My suggestion is making sure that we relax ourselves and our minds from stressors. Just like you say, sometimes we need to possibly excuse ourselves from work, excuse ourselves from some of the stressors, create an atmosphere of peace, create an atmosphere, whatever your go-to is as far as meditation is concerned. Because people tell me, you start talking about meditation, people are like, ooh, that's spooky. No, 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 no. Create 5 minutes in the morning just meditating, clearing your thoughts, clearing your mind of different things, different stressors, music. Listen to music. These are all natural ways to de-stress. I do something, they're called mindfulness activities. So that's one of the things that I should have put as one of our resources, mindfulness activities. I teach mindfulness, dialectical behavior therapy, which is one of my go-tos, mindfulness eating, meditation, relaxation techniques, just taking a moment to have some calming breaths. These are just normal things that you can do. One of the things, mindfulness eating, one of my favorite things. I'm a foodie, so I love to eat. So if I'm feeling that I'm having a hard week, one of the things I'll do, I'll go to a restaurant. I have this favorite restaurant I go to, Bonefish Grill, is my favorite place. If I ever say I'm going to Bonefish, you got to know I'm under a lot of stress, right? Because normally during the week, I can find me a nice table way off from everyone else. No cell phone. I'll leave my cell phone in the car. Nothing but me, my food, and I sit there and I just relax and I eat and I taste my food and I enjoy just being there. That's a way for me to unwind and debrief. A lot of times we don't need medication. And I teach most of my people, I probably have 2% of my clients that are on medications and that I have advocated for medication because they just can't come out of the low. But most of my clients, and I have, thank you, God. God is so good. Probably about 60 clients right now that I see. I see about between 8 to 10 clients a day normally, but most of them I have been able to help them with finding techniques to, to lessen anxiety, to lessen depression, to know how to handle these things so that you don't have to, go on any type of medication. And most of it is just relaxing and kind of just shaving some things off of your schedule and finding that time for self-care. Exercise, very important. One of the greatest medications you'll ever have to be able to combat anxiety and stress is exercise. You don't have to get you a trainer. Just take walks, nice walks, and things of that nature. So those are some of the things that can help you with just de-stressing and staying mentally aware and healthy.
Yeah. I like that. Now, you were talking about the breathing exercise. What do you do with the breathing exercise?
There's something called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just basically just take those deep breaths. And as you're relaxing and you're calming and you're centering yourself, just count backwards. And you can do that probably 3 or 4 times within the course of your day, in between on your breaks, and it will totally center you. Yes. Waking up in the morning,
Yes.
and morning is my time. So that's my meditation time. I always tell people prayer is my Paxil. So and just a little bit of self-disclosure. I didn't come about all of this education because I wanted to be smart. I came about it because there is a prevalency for depression and anxiety and trauma in my bloodline. So I had to find ways to de-stress. I had to find ways outside of medication to, be able to balance and manage the depression and the anxiety. And all of it has been, my entire life's work. So people always like, oh, you're so good at explaining this. Oh, I'm so good at explaining it because this is my life. So being
Right.
able to just put these things into practice, and being able to meditate in the mornings. That clear. Some people don't meditate because they think they've got to do it. They think they got to be Russell Simmons, and
Yeah.
25 minutes, 5 minutes of just centering yourself in the morning. Quietness, stillness, no cell phone, filtering out thoughts and preparing for your day is perfect. 5 minutes can center you.
So let's talk. Thank you for sharing that, because I like to give the practicality there, so people that are listening, the audience that's listening, can use those tips that you're sharing. Let me ask. So if I have friends or family that I feel experiencing, what things do you say for someone to be able to notice or can tell if someone is having a mental problem? Are there certain signs that you would say as a educator here and a counselor that we should look for in our friends, family, loved ones?
Indeed. If you know your family, look at sudden shifts in their mood. Okay? If there's a sudden shift in someone's mood and they're not acting like they normally act or responding like they normally respond, listen to that. Ask them if they're okay. If they're isolating, find out why. And that's not something that they normally do. If they're saying things that might not sound right, don't ignore it, because sometimes people can be talking, they can be saying stuff, and they can be crying out for help, and you don't even realize it. So just being able to know people and understand if they're acting different, or there's something that's different about their behavior, even their continence. Looking at somebody and they're not looking like themselves, and they're looking like they're zoning out and things of that nature. Pay attention to some of that. It's important.
You know what, Tammy, one other thing I would say would be I guess you were talking about the highs, the lows, but also the highs. Like if someone is even more animated, right?
Yes, indeed.
Than normal can be a sign as well.
That is one of the major signs. Animation, almost, it doesn't have to be manic, but just animation, high animation. If they're if you know that they're pretty calm and they're pretty relaxed, and just any shift in their mood that's not normal, question it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about it. I think I'm hearing more about this as well. I'm having a conversation with someone about it. PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder. And I know a lot of times we use that associated, more so you hear it associated with veterans, right?
Right.
But we know that that's a traumatic experience, and there are certain triggers that can bring that on. Have you had to deal with a lot of situations where, even in some of your clients, or just your exposure? What has been your exposure to that?
Indeed,
PTSD?
indeed. Probably 30% of my clients have experienced trauma on some level. And so let's talk about the history of people who may have trauma or post-traumatic stress disorder. People who have suffered CSA, which I call childhood sexual abuse. That's one of the major traumas. Okay. Or any violations in their youth, and now they're adults. That can cause trauma. And a lot of times when people have experienced initial trauma, there are other traumatic situations that come up in their life, and we might have to do another show on trauma bonding, because trauma begets trauma. Okay, so a lot of people, when people are traumatized, and it doesn't have to be anything major, a series of bad relationships, one after the other, can cause trauma, but there's a root cause to that as well. So we don't have to look at it as being something. It's a person's propensity or their ability to be, how well do they handle stress, because stress and anxiety on top of each other, just compounding on top of each other, one stressor after the other, can be traumatic. So out of trauma comes triggers, right? We always talk about trauma triggers. trauma and triggers. So out of that, people, the way that people respond can be a trigger. You can say something to me that could be, you could be talking to me normally, right? And you could say, well, Tammy, I think that you should do this, that, and the third. And I don't hear it like that because there's something in me that has affected the way that I hear information. And I may respond aggressively to you or very passively to you, may cut you off, may not talk to you anymore. And you wondering, well, what happened? You know, we just, you know, we just had this conversation. And after this conversation, you know, they just basically isolated themselves, or they shut me out, or they blocked me. People sometimes are triggered by different things that people say or do that can be perceived by that experience that they've had, that causes them to react just like they're experiencing that over and over again. Emotional abuse, verbal abuse from family, you know, during childhood, and people still hear when people may want to try to give some constructive criticism, it may still sound like that emotional abuse. And so they shut down, or they respond in an aggressive manner, or they isolate. So we've got to understand that with things that people, a lot of times when we see these behaviors, when we see things occur, you know, and there's something on the news and we don't understand why people respond the way that they respond, a lot of times those responses, those extreme responses, have to do with triggers from trauma.
And I like you sharing that because, you know, like you said, those traumatic situations and experiences, and you have to learn how to take care of yourself. And, you know, like I said, I'm just being transparent myself, and some people do know, you know, I've had several losses of children. So there are times, it's only certain things that I can take sometimes for so long. So since I'm grieving, like, you know, my children's lives, or certain major milestones, sometimes I have a large family, and I have my nieces and nephews, great nieces and nephews. And so I have to sometimes pull away. Sometimes I want to be close to certain things, but I pull away because I realize it's it's an emotional trigger that is bringing on for me, and I don't know how I'm going to handle that. So I try to pull back for that moment so I can gather myself, because there are times, even when I've sat in church and there have been baby dedications, and I'm sitting there and it's a baby dedication, and then all of a sudden warm tears are coming down my face. You know, I want to be there. I'm happy and genuinely happy and excited for whomever is having the child and the pregnancies and everything. But it's just, it triggers that, you know, my particular loss. And so if I'm maybe in a store, I'm shopping or doing some kind of shopping or something like that, and even when it comes to milestones, graduations, you know, homecomings, or athletics and things like that, like, oh man, my child would be this age and would be out there playing and doing, it brings on a certain, you know, emotional feeling. And sometimes I shut those areas down and say, okay, I can't deal right now. And then there are other times I'm like, just Michelle, let it come, you know, just feel the emotion so you can deal with it and not stack it on top and then snap off on somebody.
True. Now, let me tell you something about that, because people think grief just happens and it, you know, you eventually, you know, heal from grief. Grief is forever progressing, you know, and things of that nature. We're forever experiencing those moments and things of that nature. So understanding grief from the point of the matter is that sometimes people don't get over certain things. We just learn how to manage better. With those situations, there are different things that we'll talk about on a more personal level, because you, as my sissy, we'll discuss on a level greater than that. Trauma is my thing. So as much information as I can get, as well informed as I can become with people who deal with trauma, I do my best work. And one of the things that I've discovered, which has been powerful for me over the last 2 months, I've been going through a training called Emdr Training, which is it trains you to be able to deal with trauma. And I'm gonna tell you, I wouldn't have ever thought it could be done real time had I not experienced it for myself. And how it's a dual stimulation type of processing that helps you process through trauma real time. Like being able to, it's like taking those traumatic thoughts and merging them with happy thoughts, right? To be able to help you with understanding how to relate to it. So say you're dealing with the loss of the children. Okay. And and so we talk about those negative cognitions that come with that, those what ifs, how you feel about how we feel about ourselves, because sometimes we can suffer certain things and it makes us we get this core belief about ourselves, like we're not worthy, or just different things. I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. All of these are core beliefs that derive from those traumatic situations like loss. So we take those negative cognitions and we kind of move them over to the thoughts of I am worthy. But there's another portion that goes with this, that dual stimulation, as we're thinking it over in our mind and we're revisiting these things that cause us to feel this way. We're actually processing the information real time, to where each time we think about it and then we think about where we want to be compared to where we are with it, we start feeling better about it. We start feeling better. And then it becomes like you're looking at it from far away and you see it, and it no longer affects you or causes you to feel the way that you feel, but you understand it more and you understand it better. So there are a lot of new phenomenons that's coming out to deal with traumatic incidents and traumatic triggers that come from loss and grief and violations and things of that nature, that are working real time for clients. I went through something. I was having panic attacks, and I can share a little bit about this, and night terrors. And if anybody knows that I just lost my mom in July, so that with the stress of everything that I do turned into night terrors and panic attacks and things of that nature. And I was telling my consultant about it, one of my trainers, and she said she took me off. She said, look, you're not going to go to lunch today. We're going to do a part of this therapy. It's called pendulation. And we're going to pendulate while you're on your lunch break. And after I think it was Thursday, and I spent that time with her, and she helped me process through those emotions and those feelings. I have been sleeping like so wonderful. So I mean, I've experienced it for myself, because I was thinking this some kind of spooky stuff right here. This I don't know. I'm gonna go through this training, but this right here is spooky. It's like I don't know, but we're gonna go through this training because I want to help my clients. But in fact, it was able to help me. Right.
Good.
So
Yeah.
EMDR therapy is just one of those things that I suggest for people who are experiencing situations like, loss and things of that nature, but are still trying to process those emotions. So the audience can look it up. It's called EMDR therapy. Look it up, see what you think about it, and
EMDR
find
therapy.
somebody. Yes.
Let's so one thing I want to talk about too is the differences as far as how men versus women process. And I know women, we're all, we talk, we share. But more so than men, we get it out. But I want to talk about men and how they process things. And I know a lot of times you have kids that are coming up in single parent home where, the father was absent, and then the traumatic situation where they're waiting to hear from the dad and don't hear from the dad, or they're waiting there for hours, the dad never comes, or, with some, the mother walked off and just left and the dad is raising the children, or it's been violence in their home, et cetera. But talk to me about how men process things different than women, and just what help is there for our men? I mean, and I definitely say our Black men, because then we're taught as men, men are taught to be strong and to not process feelings, to be strong a certain way. But
I don't want you to downplay our Black men with trauma and with mental health, because I think that they are the population of men that suffer the most. And the essence in that is just, and this is with men being told, oh, don't cry, suck it up. And think about it, even not just the fathers tell them this, but the mothers are groomed to tell them this, even when the fathers are not in the home. You a man, suck it up, don't cry, you can handle it, be a man, you're a big boy, and so they grow up with that process in their mind that they're a man, they're able to handle it, they're a big boy, so think about, this is how you're groomed, this is what you're told. And so you spend, as a man, they spend the bulk of their time, and this is because I have male clients also, not because I'm a man, but because I have a lot of male clients who talk about the fact of the matter that they don't want to disappoint their family members for feeling the way that they feel, or being depressed, or having high anxiety, how they put their time into being able to be the advice for their friends, and but to be able to say, now I'm in therapy, that is like, oh, that's real taboo for a man, because he's supposed to be able to handle it all. And think about Black men, and slavery, and how master, say, treated them as animals, and they were supposed to carry more, just like Black women. They were supposed to be able, to work in the fields, all that time. And so they carry this mindset, this strong mindset, or this invincible mindset. So they're while society is saying they're built for this, they're experiencing so many other things internally that is saying, no, you possibly need to deal with this, but they don't understand how to deal with it.
Wow.
So mental health is there. Mental health treatment is there. But being able to break through those barriers and things of that nature that have been built up, to their demise, is one of the things that I think that we face with the mental health crisis for Black men.
How can we, so with that, because you just, touched on a lot there, but how can we as women in our Black men's life, not necessarily wives, because, just women,
Right.
how can we help our brothers in that regard as well?
Normalize mental health, normalize emotional health, because we don't normalize it. Think about it. Oh, you the man. Oh, you the man. Anything that happens, then we as their women, as their friends, as whatever we are, we're also inflicting that ideal that they're supposed to be some type of superheroes. But let's normalize the fact of the matter that we understand that they have emotions as well. They have those needs, emotional needs, that need to be met just as well as women do. That because they don't talk and they may internalize, that doesn't mean that they don't have feelings, that they don't have emotions, that they don't have things that they're processing through even on a greater level, because their title is a man. They are men.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to normalize the fact of the matter that although they may not vocalize that they're having emotional days, that there are times when they are experiencing really on a greater level than we will ever experience emotional turmoil.
Well, I like that, because I know a lot of times just women were like, oh, you can come and share, your heart with me, you can cry, but then we're like, okay, you're crying too long.
And that's the crazy thing about it, because women will say, you can share with me, and then when they're honest about how they really, really feel, then we in an uproar. Because it's hard. Think about it. It's hard to hear, the truth from men. We can vocalize to them all day long and tell them how we feel and what we feel like they should do, and how they haven't been, and but no, it's hard for us to hear. And that's what I deal a lot with my couples, and I have to be able to break those barriers down to say, look, if this is going to work, there's going to take some true honesty and transparency. And the first thing I tell the women, I prepare them, he may say some things that you don't like, but I need for you to be able to listen and hear his heart before you respond, in a manner that shuts him down again. Because we have the knack of responding and they shut down because that's what they're used to doing, internalizing.
So I want to go here a little bit as well. We, how do I say? So the question is, whose mental health is whose responsibility? And I say it that way because I'm saying we have to take care of ourselves. And sometimes we look for other people to take care of us.
That's called codependency.
We look for other people to take care of us, but the responsibility, I know there are times where you have to intervene and somebody has to come in and, help and get that person help. But I'm saying just on a day-to-day basis, we've had traumatic things, different situations going on in our lives. And I know sometimes I've said when I've seen myself act out in certain situations and I have to realize that's not on that person, that's me, and it's nothing that they went through or they did to me. It's something that happened in my life, happened in my past.
Indeed.
And now I'm acting out and I'm putting all that pressure on them. But my mental health, me becoming mentally healthy is my responsibility so I can get the help I need to be better for myself first and then better for those that I interact with.
That is so true. That is paramount. It is our responsibility to become emotionally and mentally healthy. Nobody else's responsibility. And the thing about that if we don't, it's nobody's fault that we aren't.
I've seen myself act out in certain situations.
It's nobody else's fault that we haven't dealt with what it is that we're dealing with internally. And I think a lot of times, especially we get this when people have been victimized, right? That sometimes that trauma, that is a hard thing for people to release. Because I have people telling me, especially when people have been victimized by others, if I let this go, if I forgive, if I get, if I get better, what do I have to hold on to that's going to be the reminder that this person has violated me or has hurt me? And my question to them is, why do you need a reminder? Why do we need to remember? It's okay to remember, okay, that you've been violated, but only for this is only for the sake of understanding that now I'm better, that I can heal, that I can get better, that I don't have to live in this paradigm as a victim. It's my responsibility to heal. It's my responsibility that even if that person does not ever admit that they hurt me or violated me or, did whatever they did to me, it's my responsibility to release that so that I can live and not survive. We need to live. We don't need to just be in survival mode, but we need to live above all of that.
And I think as you're saying that the way that everybody deals with it or process that way to survive is different. I had an experience in my life where there was violation and, I have to deal with it the best way for me. And that's not being around that person, know,
indeed.
And I choose not to. The person who doesn't love God and God has changed their lives and they're doing better, I wish them well. But for me to be in my place and to make sure I'm good mentally, then I remove myself from that environment and I choose not to participate there, and engage in conversation or whatever, because that's healthy for me. I don't want to be taken back in that space every time.
And that's good because that has nothing to do with whether you forgive or not forgive.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we have to understand that forgiveness does not mean that you go and jump in the snake pit again. It may not even mean that we are able to deal with the offender, but we are able to live above the crisis, that it doesn't affect our lives and, be triggers so that we're not able to, involve ourselves with other people because of this violation and things of that nature. It's a whole sorted thing to forgiveness that we have to deal with. What is forgiveness really and what it isn't, right? Right. So mental wellness is our responsibility.
And like that,
crisis is.
And like I said, it can show up in certain forms, addictions and things like that. There's so many different ways that it can present itself. So maybe the thing I'm going to ask here, and as I'm going to look and see if we have any questions. So Facebook fam, YouTube audience, you have any questions for Apostle Tammy, please put them in the comment sections. I see some comments here, so I'm going to go back and go over those. If you have any questions, please ask. We switched over to Q&A, and we'll be closing it down in a few. So, Tammy, that goes back into what you were saying, mental well-being. So ways that you think or that you would suggest to improve our mental well-being, if you could give us a couple of things, what things would you say they would be to improve our mental well-being?
Number one, I think that if we are having a hard time getting over certain things, that we should, not just because I'm a therapist, but I think that we should choose therapy. I think therapy and being able to have someone that has an education and, you know, an experience with dealing with the mind and wellness, that's most important. Therapy is most important, and it doesn't mean that you're pathological. It doesn't mean that you have some type of diagnosis. But however, we can still have trauma and not have what you would call a diagnosis other than the trauma. The trauma actually brings about symptoms of depression and all these other symptoms. So once we learn strategies, and normally it comes from someone who's experienced in how to care for the mind to help us get over these humps that we need to get over. So if you can't afford it, I think therapy is the basis of being able to be on your way to total wellness, mind wellness anyway, right? So that's number one. Number two, if you can't afford a therapist and you know that you're stressed and you have anxiety and you're dealing with depression, try to figure out what those root causes are, right? And then work on trying to eliminate some of the stressors in our lives that may keep us with these issues. Exercise, proper diet, all of these things are important. Enough sleep, getting enough sleep. All of these things are important to your mental and your emotional wellness. So cutting down on a lot of the stressors, especially if you're experiencing anxiety and depression and you are a professional person and you've got a lot on your plate, reorganize some things, cut back on some things. Sometimes we got to cut back on relationships. If you are involved in the bulk of your relationships, and it goes past love relationships, because I always tell people this: if you got a toxic love relationship, then you might want to check your other friend connections, because you don't just attach the toxic people when you love them. You might have some other toxic friendships, toxic family members, because it's like this energy that you draw. So we may need to look at the relationships, look at the people who are around us. Energy draws energy. Spirit draws spirit. Spirit connects to spirit. So look at those people you're connected to. How are they edifying our lives? And sometimes we have to just be adult enough to say, this relationship is not working for me. This relationship is keeping me depressed. This connection is keeping me, out of whack. And just cutting back on those things. So see who you're around, see who you're connected to. I can't hear. Ooh.
Wait a second.
Okay.
So we have some comments, and I want to highlight some of those comments that's in the section here. It says someone gave a comment. Thanks for sharing. When you understand people's mental position, we can view the person's attitude in a different perspective.
Indeed.
So, yeah. And then we have feedback. We have challenges sometimes with self-identity. This is talking about the men, because of all the characteristics of how a man is supposed to be. And then, of course, about the men again, normalizing is a key strategy. Man needs to be defined clearly to understand how Black men fit in society or need to respond to certain stimuli. We have challenges explaining ourselves or even avoiding to explain ourselves due to wanting to be a man. Wow. So, yeah, that was some of the comments that came as we were having our discussion. Good stuff.
Awesome.
All right. So this has been a great conversation. We've gone over. We're over here 6:20. I said, "Ooh, let me look at the time." So, Tammy, share with us some of the resources. I know you have provided some resources to us that can help, because I know there's emergency. I think 211. If you can explain what that's about, and just some resources that people, our audience that are listening, can get help. Like you said, you can get a therapist, great. But then there are other resources that are free that people can reach out to and get help today.
Yes.
Can you share
I think 211 is our greatest source. Our greatest source here, in the nation, is 211. 211 is able to provide you with any type of social what I call social wellness or social services that are in your area or anything like that. Contact 211. And whether it be your need for mental health care, any type of social services, things, for your family, they'll be able to steer you in your area to those things that you may need, right? Right. I'm trying to find, there is a mindfulness app that I love, and I just drew a blank, and I want to share that with you. National Institute for Mental Health. If you go and you Google the National Institute for Mental Health, you'll also be able to find different things in our area. And I did give you, I gave you that information, Michelle, that you can share with others, all of those different resources, because they give you information for the suicide hotline, the mental health hotline, all those things that you will be able to, you'll be able to get in case you need it. Headspace. It's an app called Headspace, guys. I love this app. It is basically an app with all of these different self-care tools that you can use, mindfulness activities, meditation activities, all of those activities that you can use to keep yourself centered, to keep yourself aware of your mental health and things of that nature that you may need. It's called Headspace.
Okay, I just pasted the list that you provided. I pasted in there the 911, the suicide prevention line, and all of that. So I did post it in. So
Awesome.
Facebook fam, you guys will be sharing, those pieces with you guys. Okay, so you can make sure if you have any, needs that you can reach out, and this is the information that Tammy shared with us, that you can reach out and get the help that you really, really, really need. And I think, like you said, it's information out there, it's help out there. We just need to reach out and let someone know that we're hurting, and, we need someone there. And I think, like you said, talking to friends as well, just being able to talk to someone. I think you touched on it earlier about isolation, and I think, I wanted to reemphasize that, because a lot of times what we do when we go through things, we have a tendency to close down. And it's not about letting everybody know, but that trusted friend or someone, just let someone know what's going on with you, so they can, be there to be support and to help, right? Sometimes it's just being able to have somebody to listen.
That is so true. That is so true. You gotta have people that you're able to depend on, that's gonna be there to somewhat recenter you and keep you grounded. I say, okay, I'm about to fall off the wagon. Somebody come through,
Yeah.
So I got those people, Sissy, you being one, when I'm about to fall off the wagon, I'm going, you're going to get a text and say, okay, look now, I'm about to go to a place that I don't, feel like going to. But being able to have those people, those confidants, those people who are centered, and those people who are balanced that you can share with, it is very important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, Sissy, we're here at 6:23. It has been a great conversation today.
Yes,
health.
indeed.
It's a mind and body thing, and we've been talking about mental health, mental awareness, mental illness. We've talked about definitely resources that can help you, talking through examples of what mental health is. And, we talked about different types, right? We talked about moving from mental health issues into physical health issues and how those things are related. And then it was the other term that you said that's not diagnosed, but you have the physical conditions. It starts with the S.
Somatic conditions. Yes.
Yes. So Facebook fam and YouTube audience, I am so excited and glad that we've been able to bring this topic to you and have conversation with Tammy Robinson, who is a counselor expert, Soul Path Counseling and Therapeutic Services. So that you can reach out to her. So
yes.
You can reach out to her directly. We'll have her information. I know our production team has shared it, but with the other information that we provided, you can also give her a call if you need help and assistance. She will be able to help you and be able to provide those services. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be intimidated. The point is we want you to be healthy. We want all of us to be healthy. So that's physically, that's emotionally, and that's spiritually. And there's some things that we've gone over today which can help you to do that. So please take advantage of it. Remember I said, knowledge is power, but it's what you do with that knowledge that determines the outcome. So there's something for you to do. There's an action for you to take. You don't have to stay in the situation you're in. You can change your situation by changing your decision and making a different one than you've made before. And I know, guys, that sometimes it's been rough, and I know we've had a year or two of some rough things going on in our lives with COVID on top of everything we were going through and dealing with before then. But hang in there. You can make it. You know, don't give up. Someone out here love you. We love you. We're bringing information to you to help you. You are not alone. And believe it, sometimes you might be ashamed or don't want to share information, but we have all been there. There are things that I don't want to share, or things that have been shameful that I never want anybody to know. But when it comes to my life and saving my mental status, then you know what? I got to talk about it,
Amen.
right? So just know that you are loved, that you are valued, that you mean something to someone, and that you have to first love yourself, right, before you can try to give anything to anybody else. Give that love to yourself. Give that forgiveness to yourself. Give that understanding to yourself. Be there for you first before you can be there for somebody else, all right? So love yourself enough to help yourself be better, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So with that, I'm going to ask Pam if you would, any last tips that you would like to share with our Facebook fam and YouTube audience, and then I'm going to close out for today.
I just want to say, take care of yourself. Michelle has said so much today, and thanks for being able to share this platform. Be able to sit down, schedule you some self-care. You know, we are that vessel that is being able, that God desires to use to get whatever it is that you're purposed to get out into the earth. So if this vessel isn't healthy and this vessel isn't in a mind frame to share what it is that God has given us to share with the world, we are doing ourselves and others a disservice. So take care of you, take care of your mind, and take care of your body. Very important, very important.
Thank you so much, Tammy. It's been an honor to have you on Conversations with Shelley today as we talked about mental health and mental awareness. Thank you so much. You have blessed our audience, and the information, your experience and expertise, I know, has been beneficial and is definitely of value. So Facebook fam, YouTube audience, please share this Facebook Live to help yourself and to help your friends and family. So with that, Facebook fam and YouTube audience, thank you guys for joining us today. We know you could have joined somewhere else, but you came and you sat down and you had a conversation and listened in here. So thank you so much for your time today. Know that I love you here at Conversation with Shelley, but God loves you best. And until the next time, we will see you next Sunday at 5 o'clock p.m. as we continue our series, Health, It's a Mind-Body Thing. Until then, you guys have a wonderful day. Love you. Bye-bye.
Real and informative, different and refreshing. Conversations that relate to you. Welcome to Conversations with Shelley, live from the Soul Cafe, every Sunday at 5 p.m. on Facebook Live. It's Conversations with Shelley Sanders. She talks about everything: love, family, relationships, social issues. Get ready to dig in and talk back. It's Conversations with Shelley, live from the Soul Cafe, every Sunday at 5 p.m. on Facebook Live. It's Conversations with Shelley Sanders.